Ran Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis. We're two lines from the top on Nun Daled Amud Beis. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Nichsei Ovid Koichavim Harein Kamidbar. The possessions of an Ovid Koichavim are like a desert, meaning in a certain sense they're up for grabs, that someone can take them. Kol hamachzik behen zocha behen. Whoever takes them can be zoich in them. So it doesn't mean that you can go take from an Ovid Koichavim. It doesn't mean that at all. So the Rashbam explains, if a guy sold his property to a yid, and the Ovid Koichavim took money from the yid, but the yid who was buying them did not yet make a chazak. He didn't make a kinyan. So we say Harein Kamidbar, the Rashbam says, Hefka. It's treated as Hefka. And there's an interim period. There's a loophole. We're on Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis. And we're saying over the din of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. He says when a yid buys karka from a non-Jew, there's a loophole that when you hand over money to the Ovid Koichavim, the Ovid Koichavim at that point he divests himself of any rishus, of any rights on that property, but it hasn't yet entered into the yid's possession until the yid makes a kinyan, until he makes a chazaka. So then the Gemara explains, my timer. 4 lines down. From the perspective of the non-Jew, as soon as he receives the money, the dinim of the dinim of Ovid Koichavim are, according to the Dinei Torah, is that the kinyanim of Ovid Koichavim are only through money. That's all the Ovid Koichavim has in mind. So as soon as he got the money, he divests himself of this property. Yisrael, the Gemara says, but for it to enter into the rishus of the purchaser, it doesn't enter his rishus until he receives the shtar. And Taisus has a long explanation about this, because normally we say karka is nikna b'kesef, shtar b'chazaka. So why is it nikna b'kesef? So he says some version of that a person, a yid is not soymech das. That's not what his mind is on when he buys from an Ovid Koichavim, or in general. When a yid buys karka, his mind is not on the money. His mind is on the shtar. If he's going to get a shtar, he's waiting to get the shtar in order to be kaina. So when he buys from another yid, they both have in mind the shtar, because the yid can be kaina with the shtar. But an Ovid Koichavim, since he, according to our Torah, can only be kaina with kesef, as soon as he gets the kesef, he's maknet, but the yid doesn't get into his rishus until the shtar. The bottom line of all this is that there's a gap. There's a period where the Ovid Koichavim has divested himself of any authority, of any rights in this karka, but it hasn't yet reached into the property, become part of the rishus of the yid who's buying it. And therefore, Hilkach, the Gemara says, Harein Kamidbar, that property during that time is like a desert, it's hefker. If someone wants to jump in and grab it, he can be zeich in it. And it's a machlekes in Rishonim. According to some pshatim, they say that obviously he's going to have to go and return the money to the person who had paid for it from the Ovid Koichavim. But I would say no, he's really taking from hefker and doesn't have to do anything. Now, he's certainly going to be a rasha at the minimum. The Rashbam and the Taisus both say he's going to be a Rasha because it's like ani hamahapach b'karara. If you see someone looking to buy something and you buy it from underneath him, that's a Rasha. And this person is no less than that. Not only was he ani hamahapach b'karara, he already made he already gave money to the Eved to buy it, and you're taking it away. But the Rashbam concludes it's possible that he could keep it without paying back. But this is this idiosyncratic thing that when a yid buys from an Oved Kechavim, buys karka, there's a period where if you handed over the money and the yid didn't yet get the contract demonstrating that he got the karka, during that time, someone else can swoop in and take the karka. Amle Abayler of Yosef, Mi Amar Shmuel Hachi. Does Shmuel really hold like this? Amar Shmuel, Din the Malchus. This all is predicated on the fact that we say, according to the Torah, as soon as he gets kasef, that's the only way he's kind of. So he doesn't have on his mind at all shtar. But Shmuel asks that we know that the rule is dina de machusadina. And as Rashi explains, he brings from Kedushin. That means that if someone is makna something according to the non-Jewish rules, let's say if you're living in New York, and according to New York law, once you hand over your credit card, that's a kinyan. Credit card, I don't know if it's a kinyan at all in Jewish law, but we say dina malchusadina that whatever rules are made up for kinyan, for kinyanim in a non-Jewish state, those rules will apply to bring something in someone's rishus. And the raya from that is when you go on a bridge. This is the Gemara in Kedushin says this. When you go on a bridge, let's say you go across the George Washington Bridge. What was the George Washington Bridge paid for? It was paid for with taxes. Now, taxes are not a Jewish institution. So one might say you can't drive on the George Washington Bridge because it was taken from some Jewish taxes that were taken from Yidden. And if there's no dina de malchusa dina, it was geneva. And then you're benefiting from a geneva. So from the fact that we're allowed to use tax monies that we use for public institutions, we're allowed to use those public goods. Obviously, it's not geneva because we say dina de malchusa dina. When the government applies a tax, they make a rule. That's a good kinyan, and once the government took the taxes, it really belongs to them, and therefore there's no geneva. You're not benefiting from geneva when you use a bridge that was built with taxes. So the Gemara is asking, according to the non-Jewish law, according to secular law, you also are not kind of, even a non-Jew is only kind of when he gets the star. So since the non-Jew did not, as soon as he gets the money, he's not maknit, because according to Din de Malchusadina, he's not going to be maknit until he gets the star. Amalei, Anolo Yadana. He said to him, I don't know what you're saying. I don't have a response to what you're saying about Din de Malchusadina, but however, in any case, Ella, of the Hava, but I know an example of a case, Bedura Derusa, in a town that was inhabited by shepherds. By Yid who bought land from Oved Kechavim, and during that interim period, after the Oved Kechavim got the money, but before he got the star, before he gave the star to the purchaser, another Yid came and he made a chazaka by sticking his shovel into the ground. Also, Kameder of Yehuda. He came to Yehuda, who is the Talmud of Shmuel, and he gave it to the Sheni. So I have a Maisarav that where he paskin that the second person can be kind of. We're not worried about being the Malchusadina, which says that you're kind of only first with the star, and therefore you don't have that interim period in which when someone buys from a non-Jew that it's hefker. Amalei, he said back to him, you're being a raya from the case of the village of shepherds. Hasam Bagi Mitmri Havid. Over there, it's a whole different story. These were like, it was like in Russia during during the days of communism. Everything. This is a place this that was there was a very heavy black market. Everyone was doing everything without the authorities. Everything was, or maybe you could say like square. Everything was cash. Everything was Eivel Seiche unten Tisch. So the whole economy there was going without. No one was paying taxes, and they were hiding it from the authorities. The inu gufayu lo habiyabi taxi. The non-Jew from who you purchased the karka was not paying taxes, lamalka to the authorities. Umalka Amr, and the deal was the authorities said they had to crack down on the black market. Mandiya paska lechalara. Whoever will pay whoever would pay the taxes, they're going to be kind of the property. So the original owner, this guy, had not paid his taxes, and under the Dina de Machusadina, he didn't really own anything. And now in the second, so he sold it to someone, but it wasn't recognized under the law of the land. And then this second yid, who came after they had this sham sale, it was a sham sale because the original owner really did not have authority under the law to sell it, because they said it was hefker from the beginning to anyone who will pay the tax. And this other yid came and he stuck a shovel in the ground, he made a chazaka, and then he paid the taxes. So it really belongs to him. It has nothing to do with the fact of the original kinyan and a gap in the kinyan. That was a one-off case. It was a case where, because of they had this basically confiscation scheme by the authorities, where anyone who didn't pay the taxes, they lost their rights to the land. So this Ibn Kechavim in this village of Royim didn't really own his land, and when someone made a chazak in it, he became the new owner. Rav Huna, similar case. Rav Huna Zav and Aram Ibn Kechavim. Rav Huna bought a land from a non-Jew. Also Yisrael Acha Rafik Laput. And this is the exact same case that we've been discussing, where between the time of the cash going to the non-Jewish seller of the land and the time when the purchaser of the land, the Yid, Rav Huna, got the star, another Yid stuck himself in the middle and made a chazaka in the land. So according to Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, we would say it's Kareyu Kamidbar, it's Hefka during that interim period, and this new Yid who came and made a chazaka gets it. Also Kameder of Nachman. When they went to Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman Taka Paskin, like Rav Yehuda Shmuel, that the second Yid who's making chazaka gets it. Amalei my daitach. You're saying like Rav Yehuda said b'shem Shmuel that there is an interim period where when someone purchases from Rav Kechavim, it's hefker. Whoever takes it is zaycha. But you're forgetting a different din of Shmuel, which we had on the previous block. We said we were talking about it until when someone makes a chazaka by sticking a shovel into the ground in a demarcated field, a field that has borders around it. So there's a machlokes, and Shmuel said, one man Amar said you get the whole field by sticking a shovel into the ground. But Shmuel had said you only get the place of where you put the actual shovel. Your chazaka does not extend to the rest of the field. So he says, why are you saying that when this second Yid, who's trying to swoop in and take this karka that the Ovid Kechavim had sold to Yid, he gets it when he sticks his shovel into the ground, but according to Shmuel, all he gets is just that one spot. But the whole rest of the field should go, as soon as the star gets the Yid, he should get the rest of the field. He said, no, it's true, I pass on like Shmuel, Lagabi, the din that it's Hareyu Kamidbar, that there is a period in which someone, when there's a sale from a non-Jew to a Jew, where it's hefker, and therefore someone else can take it. But I don't hold like him on the second din, that when if someone makes a kinyan chazaka by putting in a shovel, you only get the makam of the shovel. That I don't pass on like him. That I hold like Rav Huna Marav that says you get the whole field by sticking the shovel in. You made a chazaka that applies to the whole field. Shalach Rav Huna Baravin Yisrael Shalach Sodom Yavekichavim Boy Shalach Hitzikbo Ein Maitzina Semiyada. We pass, and he says we pass like Yehuda Shmuel that we don't take it from the second yid who swooped in to take the karka. They all agreed that we pass like Yehuda Shmuel. Amar Rabba Hanit mil plus mili shtoili okvim by Nechemia reish galushim mishmei Shmuel. I heard these three things from Ukma by Nechemia, the reish galusa, from the reish galusa in the name of Shmuel. So all these three things, even there's a machlekes in the Rishonim exactly. The first one is Dina de Malchusa Din. This din that we referenced before, that we have, it's often misunderstood what Dina de Malchusa Din is. People often say it that you have to follow the laws. It means that you have to turn on a traffic light, but it means more than that. It means that even under Jewish law, we recognize the transactions that are dictated by secular law. So according to one pshat, this is the first one of the three things, and then the other two are examples. According to the other pshat, it's really Dina de Malchusa Dina is, we're going to say three halachas of Dina de Malchusa Dina. But we'll go with the first pshat. The first one is Dina de Malchusa Dina, and then there are two examples of this. What are the two examples of Dina de Malchusa Dina? V'arisusa de parsoi ad memshnin. That when there's two pshatim brought in the Rashbam, either it means that the chazak of Persians can be up to 30 years. It means that it takes, instead of being a chazak of 30 years under Persian law, you have Dina Malchusa Dina that you have to hold on to it for 40 years to prove that it's yours. A second shot of that is that under Dina Malchusa Dina of the Persian law, that a person gets a karka, he can be kind of karka, that he doesn't have to prove that he doesn't have to prove it's his, even if it's a raya that belonged to someone else before. If he has it for 40 years, it becomes his, even without a taina that it was sold to him. That's the first din of Dina Malchusa Dina. And the second din of Dina Malchusa Dina, Bahanis Zaharuri, these rich speculators, the Zav and Ara Lataska, that they pay the taxes and thereby acquire the property, like we said earlier in the Gemara, that the authorities made a rule that whoever pays the taxes gets the property. If they do so, Zavenu Zimini. When they do that and they acquire property and they then sell it, their sale is a good sale because it belongs to them. That means that we apply Dina Malchusa Dina that says that you can, it's essentially, a tax sale. You'll often see, if you go on Zillow, you'll see there are properties in foreclosure because of a tax sale. It's people don't pay their property taxes. Eventually the government sells it. So if what you have to do is pay up the property, the owed property tax, and you can get the property. So that's only if the person didn't pay property taxes. But if it were, rather than a property tax, it was a head tax. That every person, it wasn't a tax that was based on what you owned, the property you owned, but rather was based on each person. Look, and they took away someone's property for not paying his head tax. Then it's not he doesn't own it. My timer, karkif the gavri mana, because the head tax goes on the person, and if it's being applied to take away from if it's being applied to take away a person's property, that's not Dina de Malchusa Dina. That wasn't their law. Their law was that you weren't allowed to do it, and it's just an overzealous tax authority that's going beyond the limits of what they're allowed to do, even according to secular law. So therefore, it's not enforceable, and the property that they take doesn't really belong. It can't be purchased from them in a tax sale. He disagrees. He says even barley in a container is meshubed to karga. Not just is karka meshubed for a head tax, but even the person's metaltalin, even his barley that he has waiting to put into his soup, that's also it can be legally taken by the authorities, and therefore they say that we're selling it in to whoever pays the taxes. That's a good sale, and that person owns it. Amar Vashi Amali Huna Bar Nosan Kashi Ba Amem. Amem asked the following question: if you say that any property that a person owns can be taken to pay his tax debts, in that case, we've gotten rid of the whole din that a bechar gets pishnayim, because one of the rules is the havali roy, because if once something is subject to being taken away by the tax authorities, if he doesn't pay his taxes at the end of the year. So if a person dies, his whole estate is subject to be taken away if the taxes are not paid on it. This property doesn't really belong to the estate yet. It's in abeyance. It's in doubt. It depends. We have to wait till the end of the year, see if they pay the taxes, and then it goes back into the estate. Every year, when a person when whatever he owns always waits to the end of the year. If he pays the tax, it belongs to him. If he doesn't, then it goes to the authorities. So how can a bechor ever yarshin, since he doesn't yarish something that is a potential part of the estate? It has to be something that's currently part of the estate when the father dies. But the Gemara is saying nothing is really part of the estate because it waits till the end of the year. Let's say till January to December 31st or April 15th, whatever the end of the fiscal year is. If the person will pay his taxes, then it will be part of the state. If not, not. But in the meantime, it's only something that could be part of the state. And the Bechar does not get from something that's only a potential part of the state. So he said to him, so if you're saying that, if that's the case, even it's not just the karga, it's not just the head tax, it's even the tax that applies to property. You should also have the property. You're saying it's a kasha on what we said, that this will apply on a head tax if it applies even to barley, to everything. But then it's not going to apply b'chlal, even because of the taska, even because of the property taxes, because that will also make any karka that a person has not be roy. So you're asking it as a kasha me, that I'm saying that the head tax even applies to barley, that you won't have roy b'mochs, that you won't have a din of bachar. But even if you don't apply a broad din of a karga, and you say the karga only applies to karka, but what about the taska? What about the property tax? That should also make it roy. What do you have to say? The Yav Tasko miss. It must be where he prepaid the taxes at the beginning of the year, and that's why it's part of the property. That's the case in which the Bechar gets the double. So just like we have to say by the property taxes that he prepaid the property taxes, I'll say the same thing about the head tax, that he prepays it, and that's how you have a din of that a bechar gets pishnai. Amar Vashi Amli Huna Bar Nos Shaltunu L'Safri de Rava. I asked the Seifrim in the town of Rava, V'Amruli Hilchas Rav Huna Brei of Yeshua, and they said that the halacha is that, like Rav Huna Brei of Yeshua, that not just the karka, but whatever a person owns is considered to be part of what he owes for his head tax, and it's included, and therefore it doesn't belong to him until he pays it. V'loi, so tomorrow it's not really true. Hasam local milsahu, this is just that the Seifrim said it because they would treat it that way. So they would say that if someone sold something, that like we said, that it would apply that if someone pays the taxes, well, he gets to acquire it. And these Seifrim would write up such halachas, such kinyanim. I guess they wanted to drum up business. They liked the more sales there were, the more money they made. So they used to do it but it doesn't reflect the actual halacha. V'amar Rav Ashi, Perdachas Misayeya Masa. He said that a perdachas, someone who is a lady geyer, who doesn't pay his share, he doesn't work, and he doesn't pay his share of the taxes. If the township, he has a right, he's mechoyev. If let's say the town is assessed, you have to pay $1 million for the year in taxes. He has, even though he doesn't have any income, he still has to participate his share. It's $1 million, and there's 100,000 inhabitants. So each person has to pay $10. He has to pay his $10. Bahani mili the atzil say masa, but that's only where he was being asked to pay his 10. They came to the township. The tax collectors came. They said everyone has to pay $10, and the people in town said, "Oh, this guy Shmerel the lady gayer, he has no money, so just we'll pay $1 million and cover it." So in that case, he has to pay back because they stopped him from being assessed his $10 by the tax collectors. So he owes them the money back. Aval andiski siyata dishmayi. But if the tax collectors never went after Shmerel the lady Geyer, they just overlooked him, or for some reason they didn't assess him his share, and then the people in the town paid it on his behalf without him being assessed by the tax collectors, then it's siyata d'shmaya. He got lucky, and they can't come after him for the money that they paid on his behalf. Amar Vasi Amar V'yechan. Hameitza v'hachotzov. A meitzer is a border, like a border fence, and a chotzov is a kind of plant that we saw before that digs roots straight down, so it doesn't interfere. It's a good plant to put between properties because it doesn't go sideways. It just goes straight down, doesn't interfere with either one of the properties. Mafsikim b'nichsei hager. It makes an interruption in nichsei hager, like we said before. If someone's kind of one nichsei hager, he's not kind of the other nichsei hager that's on the other side of the property line. Aval inyan pei of a tumah loy, but it's not mafsik l'gabi din of pei and tumah. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. He disagrees. He says, no, it is mafsik even. Ravin says, it's mafsik even legabi peya and tuma. So he disagrees with Ravasi and Rav Yechon. Ravasi and Ravin disagree about what Rav Yechon said. Peya mahi. What does it mean that it interferes legabi peya? It's not. Be'el mafsik and lepeya. These are considered that they interfere legabe peya. This is considered a border, and it makes the two sadas, the two fields, distinct legabe din peya. Hanachal, the Rashbam explains, is a barren area. If you ever went like to En Gedi, when it's dry, you see on the bottom there's a bunch of rocks. A shlulis is a path filled with water, a stream or irrigation ditch. The derech harabim, and Rishus Harabim, a path that people drive their cars down that's 16 amos wide. The derech hayachid, the Rashbam says this is loy zuafsu, not just the derech harabim, even the derech hayachid. It's only 4 amos wide. You can only do a smaller wagon through it. Ushvil harabim, ushvil hayachid, and not of them. Not only something that you could drive a wagon or a horse through, but even a path that people walk through. It's only for pedestrians. That belongs either to the rabbim or to the yachid. Hakavua, but the shvil rabbim shvil yachid, hakavua bebi moisacham or bebi moisach shamim, that is used both during the summer and the winter. So, as long as it's used even during the winter when it's rain and there's not as many people going through, it's still considered to be a distinction between the two sides. So legabi the din of peya, we're going to say the din of peya is you have to separate a corner of the field to leave for the aniyim. So the question is, if you have a field that's bisected by such a border, by a chatzav plant, or a border meaning one of these kinds of roads, it's a machlokes whether it's going to divide it. So we say that if it's these kind of roads, it divides it in two. and therefore you have to do a separate payer for each field. So we're going to say the question. So this is a machlekes whether the chatzav and the geder, the meitzer and the chatzav are also considered to divide the field in two. The guy with this din of pay. Tuma mai. What does it mean that Lagabi Tuma we divide a field? It's not. Hanichnes lebika b'yemais hakshama. Someone who goes into a bika is like a valley, and the yemais hakshama. What it really means is a sada, a field that's in use. The yemais hakshama during the rainy season. So Rashbam says that during the rainy season, not so many people walk into fields because it will ruin the field. So it's considered like a rishus hayachid because it's yemais hakshama. But Toma v'sada ploinus, and this one of the sadas that are divided by, let's say, a chatzev or a meitzer has a grave in it, and we don't know exactly where it is. And the din generally is, since it's Yemais Shamim, it has a din of Rishus HaYachid, and Toma Rishus HaYachid, Safek Toma Rishus HaYachid is Tameh. But this person went into one of two fields. He doesn't know which field has the mace in it, the kever, and he doesn't know if he went into that field, if he passed over the kever. I went into this place. I don't know if I went to the field that contains the kever, bimlav or not. Laza mitar, v'chacham mitar. Rabbi Elazar says he's tar, and Chacham say he's tar. Shahir Belazar. I mean, why does Rabbi Elazar say he's tar? It's a suffix tum b'shayachid, which is tamei. Because Rabbi Elazar said, suffix be a tar, suffix maga tum tamei. He says, first of all, you have a suffix bia of whether he first came into the field. Then even if he was in the field, you have a suffix of maga, of whether he touched, or he went over the actual kever. So it's essentially a sveka. You have first the suffix of whether he went to the field. Secondly, if he was in the field, if he touched that kever. The Chum disagree. They say it's all really one suffix. Did he go on that kever? Whether it's in one field or the other is not relevant. So that's what we're saying. According to Rebbe Lazar, that it will depend on if he has a suffix of whether he went into the field, the chatzav, this plant, or the meitzer, or that border, that border bump that we've often talked about, that whether that will divide it into two properties. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll deal with Shabbos next time. Bez Shem tomorrow. Tomorrow from Lakewood, Ira Kodesh. My next, as the wander.